Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Life. Now we are joined by Ronald Abvajee, a wellness expert, and we will be talking about, Heritage Month and the most important topic, which is diversity in the workplace. I keep saying workplace, but anyway, particularly in the light of Heritage Day, Ronald's knowledge and expertise in the wellness space, will be providing us with the necessary information that we need to know on how to provide a more inclusive and an environment that's more accepting to other people's cultures, religions, just to foster diversity and make sure that we are, appreciating each other's differences. I think this is a very important topic. Ronald, thank you so much for joining us on Prime Life and welcome.
It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Now, diversity in the workplace has become an increasingly important issue, and now that we are in September, we know Heritage Month is coming, Heritage Day, and I think it's very important for us to speak about the diversity in the workspace. So how do you advise companies or workspaces in them fostering a more inclusive environment for the employees?
When you look at diversity and inclusion,
Yeah.
it needs to shift from being a compliance checklist item because it actually enables power in a workplace. And if we shift it to enabling power in a workplace, which means bring diversity and inclusion in its most naked form, not in selected forms, but bring it in its most naked form into decision-making opportunities, exposure-creating opportunities that influence the workplace, not just from a sparkle and shine perspective, but from a systemic perspective. And that is the opportunity that exists, because when we look at individuals as not just what we see, but begin to understand deeper on who they are, nuances of, what makes them tick and function, that's what well-being is. Well-being is getting everyone to thrive and flourish in the workplace. But you cannot thrive and flourish if you do not have an understanding or an environment that welcomes difference, that welcomes something that we might not get and understand, something that we might not have been exposed to in our lives, but someone else has. And diversity and inclusion spreads across a multitude of factors, and it's evolved. Many years ago, it was about color diversity. It shifted into gender diversity.
Yeah.
Gender diversity went even further into the different views that people have on their genders and their sexualities. It has then shifted into AI and technology diversity, hybrid workplaces, that's workplace environmental diversity. So there are so many facets to diversity, but the fundamental basis that inclusion and acceptance of diversity becomes leverage in a company to build power rather than just a nice to have.
And I think you mentioned a very important point when you said it shouldn't be like a checklist that needs to be, to say, oh, we need to be compliant of this and make sure whatever it is, you need to actually invest the time into learning and understanding other people. But how do companies go about that? Because the company culture, usually it's always about goals. We need to make money. We have targets to reach and whatever it is. At what point or when does a company get to a point of saying we need to understand our employees, and not just only from the company to employee, but employee to employee themselves? They need to understand each other for a healthy working environment.
So number one, let us own the fact a company is around as a Pty sole proprietor to make money. Yeah. You are part of an organization. That organization wants to make money. If you don't want to make money, then there's NGOs and NPOs, right? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, they still make money, but it's perceived as not. So with that reality check, we go into an environment that we begin to understand. The number one priority for that organization is to make money.
Yeah.
Because then you look at the nuances around that. And the nuances around that are what leadership from board level in multinational companies to C-suite executives to managers to the rest of employees in big multinationals, and in SMMEs, we cannot forget SMMEs for diversity and inclusion, is to look at it from the entrepreneur, the founder, into their teams, is the fact that I might not have to do this because I'm trying to make money, but if I do it and I bring in inclusivity and I bring in diversity and I bring in well-being, marrying that together, I create not just a culture, but I create a space whereby employees could thrive. And employees thrive, you potentially can make more money.
Yeah.
So if you don't look out for your employees and let them feel like it's a safe space, and that's what culture is. Culture is not words on a wall. Culture is what's lived in everyday interactions in the workplace. Professor Ghoshal, I said this before, calls it the smell of the place. Does the work environment or culture feel like, he said, downtown Calcutta, hot, humid, where you don't have energy, you don't have a list to get into the workplace? Or does it feel like the Fontainebleau forest, where you want to thrive, flourish, run and jump, irrespective of what you have to deal with? And that is what diversity and inclusion brings to a culture of a workplace.
That is amazing. And let's talk about, because I know we won't even come back to this because there's a lot to talk about. What strategies can you advise companies to, exercise in terms of are there organizations that can come through the workspaces to talk to employees, to also train the staff? I don't know, some workshops that are available that you know of that you can recommend in order for them to start? Because I know there's a lot of companies that probably did not take the initiative of making sure that they're inclusive or diversity. We say it, but it's not practical. Yeah.
There are many companies that do this, but the acronym has also evolved.
Yeah.
It went from D&I, diversity and inclusion. It's now, for many companies, DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So there are companies that take what you have as a policy in your organization, or if you don't have one, how do we craft one? Because policy becomes a skeleton of an organization. From the skeleton, you can add things like culture, the bones, the muscle, the extra fat, the veins, the arteries, the blood flow. You can add different organs to that to form a fully functioning, highly optimized body as a workplace. So there are organizations that do that, but the number one thing is that organizations should look at before they even try that, is to do a dipstick in your company. To do a dipstick and be present on different tiers in your organization, and you know where it starts? It starts with hiring policies. It starts with when you hire, bias and human bias is inevitable. If I don't have standardized questions by which to ask in an interview, how am I being consistent with diversity and inclusion to try to minimize my bias, right? My unconscious bias. You then look at it from a perspective of, is my interviewee panel, my interviewer panel, is it diverse and representative of the organization? Then you look at it in the third tier, are you constantly auditing your hiring data? Because hiring data will allow you to identify holes. And then you could look at, is our policy married to what we are bringing into our company? And what do we want to create? And then how do we make this live in the organization? And it's not once-off training. It's not a 3-month training. It's a process of getting micro goals, stacking it in 90-day cycles, and then bringing that organically and handing it over to the organization to implement and run.
That's beautiful. And we know that with every implementation or a new thing that people aren't accustomed to, we can experience resistance, either from the employer or employee. Like if you were to introduce something like that, so that there is a more harmonious working environment and all of that, how do we deal with resistance? Either me as an employee asking if I have colleagues, or even from a point of a leader or a manager who's introducing this to the team, if they obviously encounter resistance, or even if it's the other way around, where I'm encountering resistance from the manager himself, he doesn't understand the concept of diversity and inclusivity. How do we deal with that?
So number one is we need to define it for what's relevant, not just to the country, but to that organization.
Yeah.
When we speak of the same definition of something, then it gives us a common ground. The next opportunity becomes the skill of listening. The following opportunity becomes the skill of having brave conversations. The next skill becomes having those conversations and listening without judgment. And ultimately, resistance is actually a fear of change. It's a fear of loss of identity. It's a fear of, I might be impacted by this workplace. Because do you know that the latest trend internationally is quiet sitting in workplaces? Quiet sitting is different to presenteeism. Presenteeism is being present in body in a workplace, but you're not working as productive as what you should. But you're there. Quiet sitting is presenteeism, but you're sitting to protect your seat in the workplace. When that protection is there, you will be resistant, because change could mean that you become vulnerable. So if you engage and you bring in a skill in a workplace of connecting heart to heart, you can then shift the heart to heart into being cognitive to cognitive. Let's understand why we're doing this, but I hear you. I hear you. And from the hearing you, we can marry the two together to form the whole. And that's the opportunity to break down this resistance to change.
Now let's talk about the importance of having empathy and understanding that, okay, we need to obviously create a more inclusive working environment, but this is from a company's point of view, while also maintaining and being firm with the fact that at the end of the day, this is a company. We're not here to, to mend relations and all of that. Like having the balance. How do companies do that?
So I say this often, I don't have to like you to work with you.
Yeah.
But if we are aligned on what is expected from me and I have clarity with key performance indicators or OKRs, whatever you want to call them, on what you need to deliver, I don't need to like you. But we need to work together as a team to achieve the outcome. The one thing that we need to be very aware of is when we look at this concept of teams in a workplace and coming together in that instance, and especially with companies, on empathy. Empathy in theory is fantastic and it's a secret weapon. But empathy means leaders and team and individuals in that team need to delve into emotions, and a lot of people haven't rationalized, dealt with, figured out emotions, even in their personal lives. But we're expecting them to have empathy, and how authentic is it? So diversity and inclusion means I need to embrace you for that as well.
Yeah.
But the opportunity that exists is taking empathy to a different lens, through a different lens. Practical compassion.
Okay.
Empathy is if there's a hole in the ground and you walk in the hole and fall in the hole and hurt your ankle and you can't get up. If I walk past, sympathy is, hey, I'm sorry you broke your ankle, and I carry on. Empathy is that you want me to go in the same hole, break my ankle, lay next to you, because I need to feel what you're feeling.
Is it?
That's empathy, right?
Yeah.
And if I haven't experienced it, I need to put myself into the mindset and framework. But my framework is different to yours. I have no clue what it's like to be pregnant as a man. How do I have empathy if I have no framework or context? But if I have practical compassion, it's like, hey, I'm so sorry you fell into that hole.
Yeah.
Are you okay? That's compassion. Is there anything I can do to help you? Now, practical compassion is hold that thought. Let's keep you stable. Let's move you away from any other danger. I'm going to call an ambulance and let's get you into a hospital. I've still shown care. I've still shown resonance on a different level.
Yeah.
But it becomes more scalable in workplaces than empathy, because that could be seen as being inauthentic.
That's a great way of looking at it, you know. And I think you mentioned that one area that we can include or be very stern and firm about the whole idea of diversity and inclusivity is especially in the hiring phase, right? I want you to give us like some tips or best practices for creating an equitable and diverse hiring process that reflects the organization's values and commitment to inclusion.
Well, firstly, you need to know what the values are. Secondly, the values need to not be words on wall or on screens, but lived in experiences. When you look at it, let's look at it in two lenses.
Yeah.
Quickly, the company, like I said earlier, standardized questions by which to interview in different tiers and positions. There's competency and then there's values. Second thing that I love doing and that I've learned recently is try to talk someone out of a job, because you actually see how badly they want it or they're selling you in that exercise. Because the reality is this is, when you come for an interview, how authentic are you, or are you putting on a mask as a role? Do you know what that's
Yes.
called? It's called a lie. And also the company is sitting there, oh, we are this, oh, we are that. Yes,
Yeah.
we are. That's also a lie. So
Is it a lie?
it's a lie.
But
on
isn't that
both
like isn't that like selling potential of what you know you can be?
But that's not the living truth right now.
So am I supposed to tell people, like for example in an interview, am I supposed to be very honest about the fact that, oh, I'm sometimes very late as a person. I struggle with being late.
Absolutely, because the lived truth will come out and you're either going to get fired or disciplined. Am I right or wrong? So in order to get the job,
Yeah.
and then is that not an area you need to work on? And that gives you growth opportunities for yourself. So at the end of the day is this, you could lie in the interview, and I've been down this road before, where I couldn't wait to get rid of that person within the first 3 months of their probation period. Because what I was sold wasn't what my lived experience is. And people that have stayed in our organizations were those that were like, dude, I'm struggling. And the question then becomes, if the company now takes on the role of, am I creating an organization and my policies are there to grow you or to discipline you? If I'm there to grow you, it's that, would this be an opportunity for you to work on? Would you be willing to work on this thing of time? Because time is important to us. Why?
Yeah.
Because our value states that we're always on time,
Yeah.
right? So time is important for us as a fundamental core value. Are you willing to work on that and to step in on a growth opportunity? If you say yes, great. Well, this is what we will measure you on, and this is what a growth path could look like. If you achieve the milestones, fantastic. If you don't, well, then we have to say goodbye. So how many times do companies go through exercises where people position themselves?
Yeah.
And I get it, it's a sales exercise, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's good or bad, right or wrong, I'm calling a spade a spade.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day is, If that is the case, you will be caught out downstream. It's either going to be unpleasant, you're going to be back into the I'm waiting to get a job line, and the company's going to be back into we wasted so much time and resources, now I have to find another employee. So at the end of the day, it creates bitterness, which is why if we create that bitterness, that resistance to change becomes amplified. So standardized questions, diverse panel to interview, and utilize and audit your hiring data, hiring questions, input all the time. Because the reality is that diversity and inclusion is ever evolving. And if we don't move with the times or the nuances and what's relevant, not just in our policies as a company, but government policies, we're going to fall away on the wayside.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. But before we end the segment, I believe that we have to take a look at what Zimkita Gova, a founder and executive chair of the Africa Women, has to say regarding this beautiful segment that we just spoke about. So let's take a listen.
You know, all of these factors, food, religion, all of that, it's about our identity at the end of the day. Now, if I am able to show up fully as be it a Christian woman or a Hindu woman or a Muslim woman at work, and not having to hide who I am, then I am able to function or to produce. I'm able now to be productive. Unlike if I have to show up as, if I feel that I'm not safe to show up fully, then it also means that my participation at work is not going to be 100%. If an employee, or if let's say I am a lesbian woman and I know the environment is hostile towards LGBTI individuals, then it means that I cannot even share about, when people are sharing about, hey, how was your weekend? What did you do? You can't even really say, oh, hi, me and my partner, or me and my wife, let's say, yeah, my wife, people are going to, or people are not going to be interested also in your life. But if it's a hostile environment, it means that I can't fully participate. It means that there are elements or areas of my life that I'm going to not be able to share about. Even if now we are in a stress session and maybe there's a valid point that I needed to raise, I will not feel free to raise because I cannot show up fully. So all of those elements, they're very important part of our identity. And if then I cannot show up fully as who I am, then it means that I cannot participate 100%. I'm only going to do bare minimum, and that's it.
I mean, thank you so much, Zimkita. That was a very beautiful lesson. But before we actually do close off the segment, because unfortunately we had run out of time, Ronald, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close the show?
I love what we said when we sit in discussions, we're selling our potential. But the opportunity here is a reciprocity exercise. If I sell my potential, but I have a plan to achieve my potential, asking the question to your partner, to your boss, potential boss, to your potential employer, he said, are you willing to walk this journey with me? I've mapped out where I can go. What structures and systems in the company are there that will allow me to maximize this dream of potential that I have, and that you can benefit and that I can grow? That's an opportunity that exists.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you again for joining us this evening. Viewers at home, that was Ronald Abvajee, our wellness expert, and we were talking about Heritage Month and the diversity in the workplace and the tools that we can, implement in order for us to have a more inclusive workplace, and so that everybody can just be productive or more productive and be healthy and well while doing that. But on that note, we will head over to a quick break. We still have more content on the show. Stay tuned.